Hola mes amis, je suis moi, Creole Lady Marmalade, and welcome back to my channel. And if you are new, bienvenue. So today we're gonna be, I don't wanna call it a tutorial, but we're gonna do like a little run through of GEDmatch, GEDmatch. I don't know what they call it, I call it GEDmatch. But I'm just gonna give you guys like a little glimpse around there. So this is a DNA website where you upload your DNA results from Ancestry, 23andMe, wherever your DNA results come from. You upload them to GEDmatch, and GEDmatch gives you this like really in-depth look at your results. So they have these multiple different programs. You can run it and run it through different ones, and each one will give you kind of like a different perspective and different, I don't even know. It's just like another look, or multiple other looks, other ways to kind of deep dive and analyze your ancestry. And if you got a little glimpse of my Band-Aid, I got a flu shot yesterday. But yeah, so you can run it through these different little programs and you'll get like this great little in-depth look. They have the, what do you call it? Ancient. They have like the ancient ancestry. I'm not so interested in that, but if you are, they have those. They have they have everything. So one thing that I especially love about it, so like not only do they give you these various ethnic breakdowns, but they have this thing called Oracle. And Oracle takes like your racial, ethnic, whatever breakdown, and it compares it to like everyone that they have in their system, and it says what region you are likely from. Like Oracle 1, for instance, it basically says if all of your family was from one region, just based on, you know, your genetic makeup, what is the likely region that they would be from, the likely country or what have you. Oracle 2 breaks it into 50-50. So like if your two parents were from two different regions, countries, or whatever, what would these two countries probably be, or two ethnic groups or tribes, or whatever the case. Just what does it look like they would be based on, you know, analyzing your DNA. And they have the 3 ones. So if you had grandparents that are from 3 different countries, would these 3 countries likely be? And then there's Oracle 4. If all 4 of your grandparents hypothetically were from 4 different countries, based on your DNA, like what would these 4 countries likely be? And I think that's just interesting to see. I like to compare. So me being Louisiana Creole mixed with a little bit Nicaragüense, Creoles, they don't have a Creole database. So when they compare my DNA against like everyone in their database, my top region that I most closely genetically resemble is Dominican Republic. So, and that makes sense because we have a very similar mixture. A lot of Southern European, African. They tend to have a little bit more indigenous than we do, but not typically as much as the rest of Latin America, especially like Mexico and Central America. But that's exactly why I would advise people to use it who are already very familiar with their background, like they understand their DNA tests, or I mean, you can search for a little extra clarity on them, but for the most part, you understand your DNA test. You know your family's background, you have a paper trail, you know for the most part what you are, and you know maybe you might need to fill in a little blank or whatever, but for the most part you're pretty sure of what you are. Because, you know, let's say for instance, had I, you know, put my results in there and I didn't know that I was Creole, I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm Dominican. Like if I were adopted or something, I'd be like, okay, I'm Dominican, and I'm not. But it's just that Dominicans and my particular Creole mix happen to be very similar. So you just want to cross-reference everything. That's why I like doing multiple tests. I like doing a paper trail myself on my family, talking to older family members, just doing whatever you can to kind of pull it all together. It's like a puzzle. It's like a game, and you're just placing all the little pieces together. And this is just another piece of that puzzle. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Okay, so your very first step is going to be to go to the website of where you got your DNA test taken, request your raw data file. They're going to email you that. Sometimes it takes up to a day, usually just a few hours. Once they email you that, download it, come back to GEDmatch, upload it here. I'm not going to walk you through those steps because they're pretty self-explanatory once you get to GEDmatch. So now you're going to click the 3 lines at the top, go down to free tools, and we're going to click on Admixture Heritage. So right here is where things start to get a little hectic because you have so many choices and so many programs that you can run the results through. I would not recommend doing every single one because when you click on one, there's going to be more options within that one as well. So different ones are actually better for different backgrounds. So people who are predominantly European, they do good with the Euro genes. People who are predominantly African, they do good with Ethiohelix. I think Giglr is good for people who have like Eurasian ancestry. There's actually a really good website that I'll link in the description that kind of breaks all these down and tell you which one you should probably do based on your background. But because we're on my channel and we tend to focus on multiracialism and multiculturalism and, you know, being mixed race and whatnot, I'm going to show you the ones that I really liked for my mixed race background. We're going to focus on those. So we're going to go ahead and click on Dodecad. And right here, you're going to enter your kit number, which is basically the file name for the raw data file that you uploaded. That'll be on the home screen. And here we have more options again. For me, I like to go with World 9. All right, now we're cooking. So at the top, we have Amerindian, aka Indigenous American, 1.84%. This lines up perfectly because on 23andMe, I am, I think, like 1.5% Indigenous Central American, and on Ancestry I'm 2%, so that is right in the middle. Next we have African at 49.19%. That is not very specific because Africa is a gigantic continent, but knowing my own results, I know that this is Sub-Saharan African, and this lines up perfectly because I always fall somewhere at around half Sub-Saharan African. Next we have Atlantic Baltic. So this is the thing with the GEDmatch too. A lot of these categories, I don't know what they mean. A lot of people don't know what they mean. So you would have to like look online. And when I looked, I found that the following are the Atlantic countries. And the two that pertain to me the most are Spain and France. And I have about 1.5% British according to 23andMe, and a small percentage of Basque as well. And as far as the Baltic part, I don't think any of these countries really pertain to me. I might have like a percent of Swedish, but I think it's mainly the Atlantic part that is what it's detecting. Next we have Caucasus Giglr, which is basically Eurasia. I do not know where that's coming from. Okay, so next we have Southern. Now I can't find anywhere online exactly what Southern means, but knowing my background, I'm going to take a wild guess that Southern means Southern European. And then finally we have South Asian at 0.1%, which lines up with my 23andMe. I have East Asian at 0.1%. I know South Asia is not East Asia, but it's 0.1%, so it's probably not fully accurate either way. So now here's the part where it's going to start making more sense. We're going to click on Oracle. Now let's take a look. So this is where I was telling you guys where if they were to pick one place where your genetics look like your family would be from, this is that single population sharing. So like I said earlier, for me, their number one guess is Dominican and their number two guess is Puerto Rican. And that is crazy because phenotypically, when people see me, their top two guesses, because people are always trying to guess what my background is, the top two guesses are always Dominican or Puerto Rican. So yeah, and so for distance, the higher the number, the farther you are away from that group or genetically. So we can see that I'm a lot closer to Dominican than anything else on the list. And I have no idea what MKK30 or ASW30 stand for, but definitely Dominican and Puerto Rican are spot on considering there is no Louisiana Creole category. So now let's try out Oracle 4 to see what multiple regions my ancestry most closely matches. So Oracle 4's one population approximation still has me at most closely reflecting Dominican and Puerto Rican as my top two matches. And then underneath that, we still have ASW30, which I still don't know what that is. But then underneath that, instead of MKK30 like on Oracle 1, we have PUR30, which is another Puerto Rico match. So on this one, we have Dominican, two Puerto Ricos, and ASW30 for the top four single population approximations. Now, I don't know why that varies between Oracle 1 and Oracle 4, the single population one. But I mean, as you see, it lines up pretty much the same. But yeah. So then at the bottom for the two population approximation, that is the equivalent of if I had one parent from one place and another from another, what do I look like? What does my genetics look like that would be? And according to them, I would most closely resemble someone who is 50% North Italian and 50% Bantu, Bantu being West African. And that is actually super accurate. I'm not Italian, but Italian being Southern European, and then Bantu being West African. I am roughly 50-ish% West African, and I do have a lot of Southern European ancestry, so that actually does match up really well. And all the way at the bottom, we have the 3 populations approximation, and this is the equivalent of if my grandparents were from 3 different countries. What do my genetics reflect that those 3 countries would be likely to be, hypothetically speaking? So they have 50% San, and San stands for Khoisan. I don't know how to pronounce it, but the indigenous people of South Africa. So it appears that I would be 50% that, indigenous South African Khoisan people. 25% Catalunya, which is in Spain, and that matches perfectly because I think Ancestry has me at like 23% Spanish and a little Basque, so that lines up. And then 25% Bulgarian. Now that is weird to me, but it does line up with the ethnic breakdown where it said the Caucasus whatever region in Bulgaria, I believe, is in the Caucasus region. And for the 4 population approximation, which would be the equivalent of if all 4 of my grandparents were from 4 different regions, what do my genetics reflect that those regions could be? So we're only going to go over the top one because there's a lot here. There's actually 20, but the writing is so small, I'm showing 15, but we're just going to look at the first one. So my genetics reflect that I would be 25% Brazilian. And we know that Brazilian isn't a race, but just like Puerto Rican and Dominican, but they kind of have a configuration for, what the average Brazilian would be. So they have 25% Brazilian, 25% Bantu, 25% ACB30, I do not know what that stands for, and 25% Bulgarian. So we got Bulgarian again, and then I have no idea what ACB30 is. So if you're still hanging in there with me, we're going to check out one more calculator just to give you a feel, so you can compare and contrast and see how the various calculators sort of operate. So I'll just show you again from the home screen. We're going to click on the 3 lines in the left corner, go down to Free Tools, and then hit Admixture Oracle. And this time we're going to click puntDNAL at the bottom, enter that kit number again. I'll just copy and paste mine. So as you see here, we have a few options again. You can look into your ancient ancestry, and that would be like your hunters, gatherers, Vikings, those types of things. And that's so long ago, I'm not really personally interested in that. But yeah, then we have African only. We got a few options going on, but I feel like K15 works best for me, so that's what we're going to go with. And then this one gives you the option to enter your ethnicity. So of course, I'm going to enter Louisiana Creole, and that's just my effort, to try to help them build a Creole database so that hopefully in the future, if enough Creoles do this, they can start to recognize our particular genetic makeup, and it can start to come up as, a result for people. All right, so let's run through these results really quick. We have 15.37% Mediterranean, which lines up with some of my Spanish ancestry. White Nile River, 2.97%. And according to a family tree DNA forum, they say it's indicative of Southern and Southeastern African ancestry. Next, we have Amerindian, almost 2%. That lines up with my 1 to 2% Indigenous Central American. South African, 2.57%. Caucasian, again, 7%. That's that Caucasus area. And then Northeastern European, 21.31%, which is weirdly the exact opposite of my 23andMe results, which have me at 21.1% for Northwestern European, which mainly consists of my French ancestry. These tests are illegal in France, so a lot of times our French ancestry is kind of tucked away and hidden a little bit, but me knowing my background, I know that this broadly Northwestern European, the majority of that is French, and maybe GEDmatch is having a hard time pegging down the French because they have a smaller reference panel of French people. And then Omo River, that is, I believe, in Ethiopia, 0.76%, and then West African, 42.34%. Oh, I didn't realize there was more. Okay, so we have Horn of Africa at 5.17%, and this doesn't really line up with my previous results. The closest thing I can think of is 23andMe. I have like 7.something% of Southeastern Africa, but I know this isn't the Horn. But I know in the previous Oracle, if you went further down the list of ethnicities that I kind of matched up with, or, the groups of people that I matched up with, they did have Somalians and Ethiopians, so maybe there's something to that. And last and least, Southwest Asian at 0.51%. I don't know if this has any correlation to my 0.1% broadly East Asian on 23andMe, but tomato is so insignificant. I'm not paying attention to that regardless. All right, so the fun part, let's look in the Oracle. Okay, so for the single populations that I most closely resemble, once again, we have Dominican at number 1 and Puerto Rican at number 2. This time, a little further from the Dominican, a little closer to the Puerto Rican, but tomato, they still fall in first and second place. And then on this one, we have African American at number 3, which I don't think African American was an option on the last one, but this actually makes so much sense that these three would be in a row in this order because Creoles have intermingled with African Americans, for so long at this point. So it would make sense that our genetics would look like something that would be somewhere between a Caribbean Latino and an African American, because we do have the African ancestry that they both have, and then we have a lot of the Southern European ancestry that the Caribbean Latinos have. But because we've intermingled with African Americans for so long, we do have pinches and small bits of Anglo-European ancestry as well, and this is why the system would pick us up and see, oh, African ancestry, a little bit of Anglo-European ancestry, they see that as African American. But in my case, I have much more Latin European ancestry than Anglo, so they're spotting that in conjunction with the Sub-Saharan African, and they're also linking me to the Caribbean Latinos. So this right here, this 3 actually makes perfect sense. Again, given that there's no specific Louisiana Creole category here. Okay, so what I think I completely forgot on the last Oracle one that we did was the mixed mode population. So I know I did the one where it's, if you had 2 parents from 2 different places, the 50-50 match, like what would that look like for you? But this one is, what 2 populations do you most closely resemble, but not necessarily an exact 50-50. So they're taking 2 populations in whatever percentages that your DNA will most closely resemble. This thing has it all. So for this one, for number 1, they say that I most closely resemble someone who would be 57.7% African American and 42.3% Bulgarian. There's that Bulgarian again. I gotta dig into that and figure out what exactly is going on with that. And I could see that because African Americans are already admixed to a certain degree anyway. So when you take out the little bit of European admixture that's in the African American and you add it with the Bulgarian, that fares out to roughly half Sub-Saharan African and half European, which is essentially pretty much what I am. So that's crazy how no matter how you slice it, it just kind of all falls back to the same thing. Okay, so let's try Oracle 4 now. Okay, so according to this program's 2 population approximation, I most closely resemble someone who is 50% Macedonian and 50% Hausa. And Hausa is actually the largest ethnic group in West Africa. So Macedonia is right next to Bulgaria. This GEDmatch is very insistent on making me Bulgarian or like whatever that area is. They want me to be from the mountains of Caucasus so bad.
That is Caucasian from the mountains of Caucasus. That is a Slavic baby, a Viking from Iceland.
I mean, I'm very intrigued. It makes me want to explore more, like why it just keeps coming up on GEDmatch. So I actually just ran across a picture of a Bulgarian woman, and I get it. I can see it. She reminds me of me, especially when my hair is straight. But anywho, back to the results. So according to this program's 3 population approximation, and again, this is the equivalent of if my background only consisted of 3 groups. So according to this one, I most closely resemble someone who is 50% Macedonian again, 25% Hausa, and 25% Hausa. So this is literally exactly what the last one was. And even this 5.659595, like that's whatever that number is, that's how close I am to resembling that. So the larger that number is, the farther away I am from that. So it looks like I'm pretty close. My genetic makeup pretty closely resembles someone with that genetic makeup. But that's crazy. They just gave me the exact same thing twice. And now for the 4 population approximation, again, this is the equivalent of if I had 4 grandparents from 4 different countries, and this is all my ancestry consisted of was these 4 groups. So we have 25% Belarusian, 25% Sephardic Jew, 25% Hausa, and 25% Hausa, so aka 50% Hausa. They are so insistent on Hausa. I gotta look more into them. But this one makes a lot of sense because you got the 50% West African, which lines up with me being roughly half West African. And then you got the Sephardic Jew, 25%. And Sephardic Jews are from like Spain, Portugal, that Mediterranean area, North Africa. And that lines up with my Spanish, my Southern European ancestry. And then you got the 25% Belarusian, and they are just very insistent on the whole Belarusian, Macedonian, that area type thing. So it's cute. I like it. Okay, y'all, I promise I'm gonna make this one super fast. I didn't mean to add a third one, but I think this one might actually be the best. This one is Dodecad K12B Oracle results. I don't know how I overlooked this one, but this one actually acknowledges my French ancestry. If you look at the mixed mode population sharing, it says that I most closely resemble someone who is 52.6% Bantu, which is African, like Black African, and 47.4% French, and the distance is 4.7. And if I'm not mistaken, that might be the closest distance I've had of any of these matchings. Also, if we take a quick look at the admixture results, we get 44.99% Sub-Saharan African and 5.97% East African. You put that together, you get 50% Black African, which lines up with my normal range. And we have 17.38% Atlantic Mediterranean, and you add that to the 1.7% Northwest African, which gets you about 19%, and this gets you in the ballpark of my Spanish ancestry. And then we have 16.48% North European, which is maybe pointing to my French ancestry. I know that France is in Western Europe or Northwestern Europe, not North Europe. But like I said, the French ancestry is a bit hard for them to detect because they have a smaller reference population. So maybe it's reading North European when it means to be reading Northwestern or France. So for comparison's sake, I just uploaded my grandma's raw DNA too. So here's like a quick little overview of her results. Which I'm not going to dive deep into, but my grandmother is half Black, half Nicaraguan, and as you can see with her one population approximation, like me, she got Dominican as her first match, Puerto Rican as her second match, and then African American as her fourth match. And then if you go down, she got Mexican as number 9, but it makes sense with her being half Nicaraguan because Mexicans and Central Americans can be pretty similar. But this 2 population approximation is especially spot on because she most closely resembles someone who would be 50% Mexican and 50% African American. So my guess is they probably don't have a Nicaraguan database, but of course they would have Mexico because they likely have a much larger database of, Mexican DNA to reference. But yeah, this is actually perfect because my grandma's mom was African American, though a recent 23andMe update has shown that my grandmother does have Louisiana Creole ancestry in her communities, which have to come from her mom. So I'm guessing my great-grandma had some Creole ancestry down the line, but she was a monoracial Black woman who only ever identified as Black. So for her 3 populations approximation, which is really just 2 because I gave her Dominican twice, we have 75% Dominican and 25% Luya. Luya being a tribe of Bantu people that are native to Kenya, and this makes sense because so that would be 25% Sub-Saharan African, and then Dominicans tend to have African ancestry as well. So if you take some of that African ancestry from the Dominican and you pair it with the Luya, that's probably going to come out to roughly half Sub-Saharan African. And on her 23andMe results, she does come up as 48% Sub-Saharan African. And then, of course, most of the rest of it is Spanish and like 9% indigenous, which the Dominican would be reflective of the Spanish and the indigenous ancestry. And then for her 4 population approximation, I think that the top 3 all paint a pretty good picture of what her ancestry is, or what her ancestry is similar to, rather. I went ahead and threw in my ancient results too, just for the heck of it. I'm not going to deep dive into it, but here it is. You can look at it. And so now I see where all that Caucasus stuff is coming from. The Caucasus hunter-gatherers. Interesting.
Alright you guys, I hope you enjoyed my attempt at explaining how it all works. I tried my best. GEDmatch can be very intimidating and confusing to people. I actually tried it months ago, maybe a year ago, and was like, what is this? And just I kind of tinkered with it and figured out some parts, but I was like, this is too much. So I wanted to kind of revisit it and figure it out a little bit better and deliver it to you guys and show you at least the little bit that I do know how to navigate. I am not a professional in any of these genealogical, genetic capacities. I'm not a geneticist. I'm none of those things. I'm just a girl who likes these topics. I like DNA tests, genetics, ancestry, cultures, exploring all of that. So it's just a hobby. It's just a thing I'm interested in. I'm no professional, but I did want to come and at least show you guys how to maneuver, at least as well as I know how to maneuver. There's lots more. As you can, if you go on that website, you'll see there's lots to explore, but I just wanted to at least touch on the admixture and oracle part, because that was of particular interest to me, and I feel like that's kind of the main thing that'll give you the biggest picture, but you can learn all that other stuff on your own time. But this will at least get you started. This will paint a nice picture for you. So I hope you guys, let me know in the comments down below if you guys are gonna go and upload your stuff to GEDmatch, because like I said, it's free. So it's like a cool, fun, free thing to do. Learn more about yourself, learn more about your family. But yeah, let me know down in the comments if you're gonna try it out. If you've even taken a DNA test to begin with, do you even plan on taking one if you haven't thus far? Yeah, so just let me know down below and we will be talking soon. Au revoir.